The Irish Aviation Authority says an investigation is underway into a radar failure at Shannon Air Traffic Control, which closed much of Irish airspace for a number of hours last evening. There was disruption to flights to and from Shannon and Cork, although both airports are now operating as normal this morning. Philip Hughes is Director of Commercial Technology at the Irish Aviation Authority, and he joins us now. Very good morning to you, Mr. Hughes, and thanks for taking our call this morning. So what happened?
So we had a technical issue last night with our ATC system in Shannon. Dublin wasn't affected because that runs on a separate system. So technical issues like this can happen, which we have to plan for to make sure there's no compromise to safety. So we made a decision to go to our independent backup system as part of this.
ATC, Air Traffic Control.
Yes, that's right.
So vital really to manage the aircraft in our skies.
Correct, yeah, and absolutely. So all of our plans, these technical issues arise from time to time. So we have complete plans in the event that this happens, that we move to backup systems to make sure that safety is maintained and that we continue to deliver service to the public and to the airlines.
And at this stage, do you know what the failure was, what the problem was?
At this stage, it's still under investigation, so we're just awaiting a report on that. But in the meantime, we are continuing to operate on an independent system, so that will continue to deliver safe capacity to the travelling public.
The reports this morning suggest that it was a radar failure.
At this point in time, we're still under investigation. It could be a relatively simple problem, but until we get the report, we'll hold up on judgment on that.
So this occurred at what time last evening?
Roughly about 6:30, and then what happens then is we go to our contingency backup system. So there will be a number of delays while this takes place. So you would have seen some delays in Shannon and Cork in particular late last night. So we'd like to apologise to anyone who was delayed because of this, but obviously safety is our primary concern, so that's what we had to do.
So the disruption lasted, we had reports from Shannon a little earlier up until around 10 o'clock last evening.
That's right. My understanding is that a handful of flights were affected in Shannon and in Cork, but all of those have been dealt with, and my understanding is that there are no capacity issues, we think, at Shannon and Cork this morning.
Right. And what about flights that would normally pass through Irish airspace during this period when the system was shut down? What was happening to them?
Well, it was relatively quiet last night. Most of our busy period is actually after midnight, so the flights which went through there luckily were relatively limited, so we don't think it had any major impact.
They were diverted though away, the numbers that would have passed through. I mean, Irish airspace was closed, is that the case? So
the Shannon airspace was closed, Dublin wasn't. Shannon handles most of our overflights, so there were very few overflights at that stage because most of the traffic really comes after midnight, and that's coming from the US into Europe.
So the timing of this was fortuitous. Later on, it would have disrupted a lot of transatlantic flights earlier. Presumably, it would have had a big impact on domestic flights.
It might have it probably would have had more than an impact. If it happened later on, would have had an impact on some of the en route flights. But generally, we handle those kind of situations by first of all going to our backup system, but also then coordinating with neighbouring air traffic control centres to handle the traffic. So there's usually a network arrangement which we put in place to try and handle those particular situations.
And have you had problems with this equipment before, Philip?
It's highly rare for us to have this particular type of problem.
And is it aged equipment? Presumably it's checked and maintained on a regular basis?
No, the equipment is relatively new and it's maintained, and so it's updated very frequently. We've one of the most modern ATM systems actually in Europe, so that it's not an issue in terms of age or anything like that.
But it was a technical issue, or is it the possibility there could have been some human error involved?
No, as I say, it's under investigation. It's probably likely it was a technical issue. It might have been, for instance, a software issue. We don't know, but they're running tests at the moment to see what the cause might be.
All right. And for the moment, the backup system is the one that's operating, and it'll be some time, will it, before you go back to the main system?
Well, we'll see what the route of the investigation comes out with, but in the meantime, we can continue to operate on the independent backup system for as long as we need to.
All right, very good. Philip Hughes from the Irish Aviation Authority, thank you very much indeed for talking to us on Morning Ireland.